And so when you add an older adult, you get a radically different perspective, and they're generally demonstrating different talents, different ways of engaging than they do in those more structured environments of family and school.
Intergenerational connections can help both older adults and children feel cared for and valued. Research shows that intergenerational programs increase self-esteem and feelings of well-being for both. Intergenerational connections also provide an opportunity for older adults and children to support and to learn from one another. On today's Sound Living, forming intergenerational connections. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles says intergenerational connections can reduce loneliness and boost happiness for older adults while helping children develop life skills, confidence, and a sense of who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, children learn through interactions with other people. We're social beings, and the variety of different contacts that children can have can really teach them about themselves, about what they like, what they don't like, about what other people have experienced. And that's all part of that growing up, particularly in early childhood. They're really starting to develop their understanding of other people's beliefs and thoughts and desires. And so as they're working with, a variety of people, and in particular older adults, it really helps them have an understanding of the passage of time, of different experiences, and provides another adult with whom they connect and learn and can teach.
I think one of the important things you're saying here is this doesn't have to be a grandparent, which we typically think of for the intergenerational connectedness, but really this can be any older adult that's in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we always sort of default back to the family environment in terms of intergenerational relationships, but there are multiple other opportunities. There are some shared site intergenerational facilities where childcare and adult day services are co-located. There's always the opportunities to visit retirement homes or nursing homes. And it's not just the benefit for the child or the benefit for the older adult, it's the entire system. So not only do the two main players in it, the adult and the child, benefit, and we'll talk a little bit more about what those actual benefits are, but there's also a cultural and systemic benefit to the places where they're working together. I tend to think of that as work together, or when they're playing with young children, that's still work for children. Play is the work of early childhood. And so the more that there is a culture of engagement, that also benefits those who aren't directly involved in the dyadic interactions of children and older adults.
We touched briefly on the fact that they're helping develop life skills and self-esteem, confidence, but what are some of the other benefits that jump out?
I think one of the most important ones is being able to understand other people's talents and their different perspectives. So often what we see in early childhood is children get a few different adult perspectives. They might get moms. If it's a single parent household, it'd be mom and teacher. Or if it's a dual parent household, mom, dad, or mom, or dad and teacher. And then sometimes there's a coach thrown in there as well. But what you typically get there are all very similar ages and typically very similar sorts of experiences, again, just based on chronological age. And so when you add an older adult, you get a radically different perspective, and they're generally demonstrating different talents, different ways of engaging than they do in those more structured environments of family and school.
And there's often kind of that undivided attention, which can sometimes be hard when parents are busy.
Yeah, and it's so valuable it works both ways too, Jeff. It reaffirms the value of the older adult to the community, as well as providing that attention that children crave more than anything. So often we know that the solution to some of the issues in early childhood is attention. Now, we can't always provide that, right? If we're in the middle of fixing our plumbing, it's not like we can just stop and go play ball with our kid. And so it's important to recognize that we can't do that all the time. But if there are opportunities for that engagement that are known to be beneficial, again, to both parties, that is a tremendous opportunity, not only for children to get that one-on-one interaction and to learn with and from the older adult, but again, for the older adult to feel valued and that they're mentoring a child and passing on knowledge and being able to extend their legacy through those interactions with children. And again, they don't have to be any sort of blood relative at all. Some of the really exciting ones end up turning into what we call fictive kin, which are, they're family. They're just not blood family. Each of us probably grew up with someone who we called an uncle who wasn't an uncle. And so often these relationships, when they're really thriving, end up in essentially grandparent-grandchild relationships and everything other than actual formal family tree. And so, there are some really powerful benefits both to the older adult who, gets that cognitive practice, that engagement. I mean, we know more than anything that social engagement is the most protective factor against age-related declines in cognition, in thinking, and in mobility, so their ability to move around, to, think clearly, to function on their own. So the more opportunities we have to engage with older adults, the better off the older adults will be, and again, the children benefit as well.
They're also having a chance to learn about each other's worlds and their past. I'm thinking in particular about the first time that I learned that my grandparents actually went to the restroom outside the house. They went to what was called an outhouse, and that to me was a fascinating story, a little creepy, but still fascinating.
It is, and I think more than anything, it positions children to understand the real difference in life experience. We see it all the time, Jeff. So for you and me, we used to dial the phone with a rotary dial, and those things are just a thing of the past now, and yet they hold some nostalgia for us, right? And so for older adults, being able to recall some of those things, being able to tell their stories, again, that is all about not only making, those emotions that are associated with those stories are really beneficial, but it also really helps them practice those skills in memory and language and the emotions that come from them that are so beneficial to everyone's mental health, but particularly so in older adulthood. But yeah, I mean, just think about the changes over the last 100 years, right? So let's just go with the last 80 years. The microchip, the automobile. How about television? None of these things existed. My own father told me about the mail being delivered by horse-drawn carts. And, that was in the city of Indianapolis. That wasn't out in any rural area. And he's 83. So there are huge dramatic changes to our society. And by the way, 80 years from now, things will not look remotely the same as what they do. And so it can really help frame the passage of time. But I think more than anything, the benefits are really about individual and social components of those shared interactions.
This is also something that gives the older adults a purpose. It gives them, as I read one place, kind of a second chance and a do-over in terms of parenting, because sometimes when you're a young parent, you have some regrets. You don't have as much time to spend with the kids, and this kind of is a second chance to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So families are complicated, and sometimes older adults have children who don't have children, right? So they have no experience with grandchildren. Or maybe their grandchildren live far away. Or, there could be multiple reasons why they haven't had the full opportunity, or the opportunity they have was not as satisfying as they would like. And so they get a chance. And flatly, older adults typically like to interface with young children. I mean, we see ourselves in children. And I'm not an older adult quite yet, but I would anticipate that as I get older, the spark, the opportunity to shape a child's life as I have more and more life experience would be more and more appealing. And so, yeah, there's an opportunity, and I see it as a legacy factor, right? So there's an added opportunity for legacy. There's an added opportunity to contribute to the growth of an individual, but again, to contribute to the larger culture. The more that we have the knowledge of and the experience of past generations, the more our culture is conveyed and built by honoring those individuals and their stories and that generation, that cohort of people. So it's really beneficial across multiple different ways of thinking about it.
You mentioned the fact that there's some similarities, and one of the things I saw said children and older adults both kind of have that sense of joy and freedom because there just isn't as much pressure at those ages.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think about how many responsibilities older adults really have at this point, right? If they're retired and they have some time to spend some time with a young child, it's because they don't typically have to go to work 9 to 5. They've been able to reduce their workload. Oftentimes they have the ability to have their living situation maintained, not by them. So all the mental calculus that goes into raising a family has, at least diminished to a larger extent than in middle age. And then, for young children, hey, it's always fun to play with new people and then to forge relationships with people that are outside of your normal family system.
Maybe to wrap it up, how could older adults find ways to connect with younger children and kind of share their knowledge?
Yeah, so there are multiple different ways. I mean, I think the first way I would think about it is to work with a preschool or a K through 12 school and find out if there are opportunities to at least just come visit the classroom and give an opportunity to, tell your story. And then there are also several nationwide programs. There's Generations United is one that really comes to mind, and I cannot emphasize enough how awesome their work is. They are just tremendous in bringing older adults and young children together and providing the structures and the activities and the ways of doing that can really bring the benefits out. I do want to caution that just throwing older adults and young kids in a room together and saying talk is not going to benefit either one of them. Having something to do, again, very loosely structured, but having an activity, having a thing like, tell me a story about when you were young, and I'll tell you my story about being young. Or, hey, let's try to build this together. Or, hey, let's draw our houses and talk about them, right? Like draw your house when you were young or where you lived when you were young. So having all kinds of different activities is critical, but they're so widespread and so accessible that it really provides a beautiful activity setting for older adults to realize those benefits. And then, of course, if you are a parent of a young child and interested in having an intergenerational relationship, going to retirement communities, going to nursing homes, or, assisted care facilities can really provide that opportunity. So there are both formal and informal opportunities for intergenerational interactions.
That's K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles with information on the benefits of intergenerational connectedness. To learn more about programs that can connect older adults and children, contact your local county or district extension office. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.